Welcome to The Shield Within. The issues discussed on the Shield Within podcast do not reflect the opinions of any specific agency. They are the views of the host and the guest. Any persons discussed may be fictional for comedic purposes only. This podcast is rated explicit and listener discretion is advised. Listening to The Shield Within may trigger repressed or suppressed memories or experiences. Please contact a mental health professional at your earliest convenience. It's time for the chaos to cease.
Time to open yourself to peace.
From the hours you've put in.
To the next shift you begin.
From the endless pursuit of release.
That finds the worst unleashed.
Transform the ugly into a win.
Get to know your shield within.
All right, welcome to The Shield Within. All right, yes, the second half of the Sergeant's episode. We have Sergeant Eric and say hello. He's checking his phone.
Sergeant Eric.
Yeah, Sergeant
hello,
Eric.
I'm Sergeant Eric.
And then Sergeant Chris is here too.
Hello.
So if you're just dialing in and you missed us on the first one, Eric is also a city kitty like I am. Mm-hmm. He's with the city of Inglewood, and Chris is from the Big Road.
Surprisingly, I always spent as little time on the Big Road as
he was with the State Patrol.
Yes.
Chris and I are both retired. Eric is
womp womp womp.
Oh, we can hit that one. when are you looking to hang it up soon?
No.
Now you're going to go another 20 years?
I'm getting to the point. I don't know if I'll still be on this side of the dirt in 20 years, but I'm at that age now. Everybody is asking, and as long as I'm healthy and I feel good, I got no reason to quit. You know?
Yeah,
like
if you're still having fun, keep doing the job.
Well,
man.
and it helps that my wife's just kind of starting out.
Yeah,
you know, she's only been where she has as a couple years. So what am I going to do? Retire and sit at home?
Did I tell you this story?
About
when she was in the academy, because we're all instructors. We're all basic academy instructors too, right? Did she tell you about that?
Yeah, she did, and then you told it better one time.
Oh, okay. Yes. I don't know if I shared that with you, but and since everyone's like, "Well, what's he talking about?" Do you mind if I share that story?
That's fine.
Right.
That's fine.
So Eric and I teach at the same police academy, which is our local community college. So you teach stops and approaches and firearms. Mm-hmm. I'm the drive guy, and I do SFSTs, which is standard field sobriety testing. So I'm doing my driving lecture, and part of driving is we talk about stops and approaches, and I always allude to Sarge. I'm like, I don't want to put my finger in Sergeant Blank's rice bowl, and as soon as I said his name, the giggles started. And I went, do you guys know Sarge? Oh, yeah, we know him, and so-and-so really knows him. And I'm like, okay. I don't know how I want to approach this from this point going forward, but and they're like, well, why do you? And I said, the best thing about Sergeant Eric is he's a cop's cop. I said, he takes care of his people. He's a midnight dog like I am. And I said, I respect the fuck out of him. And I said, listen to him when he's in here. I said, I'm not going to give you any information that's going to contradict from what he says and stops and approaches. If he tells you to do it, do it. I said, but I respect the hell out of him. And they were all just kind of like, bah, but it's true, and at that time, I only knew you from reputation. Mm-hmm. I didn't know you, we're friends now, but I didn't know you that way.
Yeah, we just occasionally taught together.
Right. And, so that's what was funny is they were all kind of giggling. Then after class, or when we took a break, I'm like, hey, I hope that wasn't awkward for you. And she's like, no, but they ride me pretty hard about it. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, she got used to it pretty quick, I think.
But
there's so many things that are inappropriate that I'd say.
Oh, you can.
It doesn't matter. We've either heard it or we want to.
Well, I know. It would just be bad. It would just be the typical.
Oh, launch one.
I mean, she wasn't the only one that was riding hard. Clearly, double meaning there. I'd have been like, wow.
So the Sergeant's episode 1 was really good. And I know it's really good because it was like and then done. I'm like, oh, well, we're in an hour. Yeah, you guys got places to be here this evening, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But the beauty of it is that I think being a sergeant is the best job at the police department, other than being the dare guy. But that's a joke. At my department, being the dare guy was the best job at the department because unlimited overtime, take home car, no management.
If you're that kind of person, it probably is the best job in the world.
Right. Yeah. I'm joking.
If that's the job you want, that probably is the best job in the world. It would be terrible for me.
Right. I was never one that wanted to be that. Not that it's bad. I'm not bad mouthing it at all. It just wasn't my slice of bread. I liked working midnights, although I bitched about the whole time because of the lack of sleep. I hated feeling bad is what I hated. But the activity of the shift, and I just felt at home. Was you on midnights?
Oh yeah, I spent a lot of time on midnights throughout my career.
Yeah. So go ahead. Talk. I'm going to shut this curtain.
Nights is kind of pure. It's strictly operational.
And that's a third quote we're going to put up.
It's just strictly operational.
Absolutely.
You're not running shit for the courts. You're not taking phone calls. There's no admin.
That is a great analogy.
The rule with the highway patrol and midnight shift was always drunks, drugs, guns, stolen cars. That's it.
Let's go, boys.
I always say,
if you were a midnight trooper, that was your focus.
Yeah,
It was very simple.
I always say it's lazy man's policing, because at 3 a.m, you're either a shithead or a cop.
Right.
Maybe a newspaper delivery person.
I take the words around my mouth.
It's super easy to sort out the good guys from bad guys, because if you're out at 3 a.m, you're probably a bad guy. And you're on my radar.
Yeah.
Whereas at 4 p.m, every fucking body's on the road. You don't know who the hell's who. But if there's a car driving through the neighborhood at 4 a.m, it's worth an extra look, because what the hell are you doing here? So it makes it super easy to sort out the bad guys.
Amen. Yeah, because at 4 o'clock in the morning, I know what cars are supposed to be in this neighborhood and at what time. And if this thing from Huber Heights is rolling around my affluent neighborhood, you're going to get stopped. What are you doing up here? And one of my guys, that's exactly what it was. They went one time. I remember there was they stole an expedition out of Huber, drove it up to Tip, and was going through our affluential southern neighborhoods there. And the guy's like, "You don't belong here," and lit them up. Why they stopped, I have no idea.
They wouldn't now.
Right.
Yeah, no
I think because they were in an older expedition, they were like, "We're not outrunning this dude." They had so much shit in the back of it. They had it packed full of stuff.
Stolen shit?
Oh, yeah. And one guy had some, like a brand new set of Callaway golf clubs. They snatched that right out of his Beamer. It's like, why would you leave that in the car? Why would you leave the car unlocked? But they had guns, laptops, golf clubs. I mean, they were... But the beauty of it is my officer used that philosophy. He recognized the fact that they don't belong here, and of course, it was a lawful stop. But midnights I always thought midnights was the best shift to be on.
Been there most of my career.
When you go to days and that kind of stuff, and then when you legitimately, like on midnights, if somebody doesn't have a license with them, they're under suspension. Yeah, I mean,
So what was your speech? Can I see your license? And they said, "I don't have a license." You say,
"Yeah, well, when was it suspended?" On day shift, there's legitimately people that don't have their ID.
Probably just forgot it. Yeah,
right.
And it takes a little while to be like, "What do you mean?"
Yeah,
you're lying to me. You just
we're the police, man. Everybody lies to us.
I know. But
he lied. I'm like, I spent my life being lied to. That's why I'm not upset.
No, they're supposed to. It's part of the game.
Right. Yeah, my thing is, I don't have a license. Okay, so you physically not possessing it, or you're under suspension. I always give them like a third option. It's like door number 1, door number 2, door number 3.
Depends on where you work, because in a lot of places that I've worked, there's no reason to give more than
it's just the one.
You're out on 35 West.
Lima.
Oh my God.
Lima. What's it under suspension for?
Right. And how many suspensions are you under?
Well, that would be that one could be legitimately not known.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't keep track of that shit.
I had a guy had 21 separate suspensions. And my officer's like, are you going to write them all? I'm like, I'm not writing him 21 suspensions. He's getting another DOS and kicking him down the road. It's like...
Yeah, it's not like the judge is going to do 21 things to him.
Exactly.
Not even going to do one, so...
Yeah, and I'm not that numbers oriented. I'm just glad you stopped the car, bro.
I worked in one of the court systems that you're familiar with, where the judge would get very upset because we wouldn't write the right suspensions, which she wanted several of them. But then that same judge did the diversion program for DUIs. It's like,
oh goodness,
you're worried about putting them in jail for driving under suspension, but if they're drunk, they don't even have. It doesn't even go on the record. It's like, screw yourself.
Yeah.
I took a couple of those phone calls. It's like, I'm not playing your game. This is our policy. We don't write 15 tickets for driving under suspension. I'm going to pick one, and that's going to be it.
Yeah.
Not in an OOL.
Mm-hmm.
Makes it quick and easy.
Yep.
And that's the thing, us as sergeants, how to get our officers to navigate that.
Yep.
Sarge, what should I do here? Well, hit him with the OVI, the 4511 19A1A, and go on from there.
Mm-hmm. My wife and I just had a conversation a couple weeks ago. She had a question about something, and it was basically one of those, yes, that fits the elements, but prosecutors are probably not going to like it, particularly in our county. And she very wisely said, well, my job is to take a charge to the prosecutor. If they want to fuck it up, they can fuck it up. And you're doing very well.
Is that the mountain you want to die on? Okay, I'll let you go.
That's exactly how the system works. We bring the charges in, and if the prosecutor and the courts want to fuck it up, they can fuck it up all they want.
Well, and that was always kind of my thing. Is I didn't really care. I used to have some of my guys would just get so fucking mad when they would go on court view and see the disposition of their case.
No. Not my problem.
I'm like, I don't give a fuck. And I would tell my prosecutor, if it warrants me getting up to come to court, I'll call you. Otherwise, I caught them. You dispense justice. That's your job. I don't care what you do with them once they're there.
Once that ticket or that summons leaves my hand, that's on the court.
Right.
Unless I fuck up testimony, then that's back on me.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't. So,
do you like going to court?
It's been a long time, but I used to enjoy it.
Yeah, me too.
It's kind of a fun game.
We used to have jury trials quite a bit in Lima.
No shit.
Oh yeah, I probably had a half a dozen DUI jury trials.
Those are always fun.
That's a long day.
Yeah,
it's a long day. Especially starts at 8 o'clock in the morning. You get home at like 5 or 6, and then you have to come back out at midnight.
I was getting ready to say
that sucks ass after you've worked midnight.
Yeah,
right. I never understood why we still had to cover the shift if you had court duties all day. Why can't we just let so if I'm 8 hours in court, why can't I work a 12-hour shift? Why can't I just come and work 4 hours and go home?
We would try to flex that around. But like the one time in particular that happened, I was it.
Yeah,
I was the only midnight unit.
So staffing just doesn't support it.
So you just went to work really, really tired. And when
how unsafe that is.
25, it was okay. As you get older, it's like
a little different. 47.
I could do it, but I don't want to.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Doing double backs and that kind of stuff. It used to be, I can do that, and then it's like after a while, it's like I can, but I just don't wanna.
So I did. I taught all day over at Opana, and then I'm like, I'm going to go teach SFST. So it started at 6 and went to 10. I was done. Talking them double backs, them long days we used to take in my mind. I'm thinking,
that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, and then
it doesn't sound so bad. Yeah, when they send the schedule and you're like, I can do that and I can do that. I work that night, but I can do that. And then the day it comes, you're like, I'm so fucked. Why did I say yes to this?
Well, and I told the night commander, I said, I'm sorry if I work that day, I can't work for you that night. I'm deeply grateful for your confidence in me as an instructor, but my health is number one. So, and they pay me a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Raise my pay to where I can just need to roll which if their pay was comparable, they're close. They're 20 minutes away versus where I go is 45 minutes away. So I can make that decision really easy, but that's all right. I still love what I do. I try and do the best I can while we're there. So we wrapped up the last show with promoting your people up, and you've had majors.
Yeah, I've got a major.
That's great. So
I got a chief. Now that I think about it. Yeah,
really?
My chief used to work for me. Now that I'm thinking about it.
That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome.
I've worked for a ton of people that used to work for me. Several majors actually now. So yeah,
well, that means you're doing it right then.
Well, I cannot take credit for promoting my chief up. That's all him. But,
I can't take credit for that either. But like I said, it goes back to what you said. That insecure leaders are worried about people around them either exceeding them or I got to drag this down because they see that as a threat. And,
right. But that's not a leader. That's a manager.
Well,
a leader is someone who builds people like that.
Yes.
And that tells me a lot about you. And everyone listening should be taking that into account, the people that's around this table right now in the leadership role versus a management role.
Well, and that's not even being a good manager. It's just being a shitty human being.
Well,
in some case, even a good manager understands I got to do this to make things move smoothly. And if you're standing in the way of progress, standing in the way of good dudes, doing a good job, you're not even being a good manager. Fuck leadership. That's out the window. But you're not even being a good manager. You're just being a piece of shit.
Yeah. I second that motion, Sarge. On the other side of the coin, I always appreciated having professionals work for me, and I was always humble enough to say, look, man, I was only stupid enough to take the sergeant's exam. You clearly are a subject matter expert in this. Which the CAD system. I had a guy that could work our CAD system like a genie. I mean, he was fucking brilliant. So why would I sit there and try and solve a problem or whatever was dealing with it? I call him back there, and of course, he was kind of, I had to go back and set the sergeant up straight, which is fine. Yeah, you earned that bragging right. So I am not that good at that, but there's some things that I'm a subject matter expert at. But I never thought that someone knows something more than me, and I always felt that that's my job is to get them beyond my level where I wanted to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's good stuff. I like you. We talked about, did we ever want to be farther? You okay talking about your move up and move back?
Oh yeah.
I want to segue into that. I had a little bit of chiefsitis for a while, and one of the agencies I worked for, the Village of Bradford, Ohio.
Oh yeah.
And Chris and I both know that because we're both Covington boys.
Okay.
Bradford is like...
it's where everybody there has RW impediment. Love you guys in Bradford. Just kidding. Relax. Don't be emailing me. But anyway, I was there, and their chief left. I don't know if you remember Mike Davis, but God rest his soul. Great guy. He went back to work at Dark County as a detective. And the sheriff over there was like, how much longer are you going to keep beating your head against the wall? Why don't you come over here and ride your time out with me, and I'll take care of you. So the mayor come in one night, and I was working, and he says, Mark, I want to talk to you. Okay, what's up? He's like, well, let's go drive around. Okay, we can do that too. So I got in the squad car, and we're driving around, and this is odd, I'm thinking, of course, being negative,
kill me?
We'll just go for, you're going to kill me. Mostly, I was thinking he was going to fire me. He's like, you really do a nice job around here. And, I was a councilman in Covington for 2.5 terms. And he says, I really like the way, Mike's leaving. We're going to be looking for a chief. And I would really like you to be the next chief here. And boy, you could knock me over with a feather. I'm like, wow, I don't know my ass from hole in the ground comes to law enforcement because I was just a part-time guy.
Yeah.
And, I was getting ready to go full-time in Tip City, and I'm thinking, you kind of look to the heavens and say, all right, God, what are you giving me here? And then kind of like what Ron had told me in the past, moving up in my career, he's like, look, you're at a dead end. And the best way to keep a chief's job is to become a chief. Start at a smaller agency and then work your way up. And Ron had encouraged me to do that. And I never shared with him that I was offered the chief's job there. And I said, well, sir, I really, really appreciate your confidence in me. But, do you know you actually have a guy here that's actually been a chief? Really? I didn't know that. And I told him who it was. And he said, well, thank you. I appreciate that. But why don't you want to do it? And I said, because I'm getting ready to start a job in Tip City and they're going to be paying me X amount an hour or X amount a year. And he went, oh, there's no way we can match that. And I said, yeah, I got a young family, bro. So, but, and I always kind of thought about, maybe sometime I'd want to do that. But the longer I was in management and I saw that side of things, I don't want nothing to do with this. I don't want to have to deal with problems and personnel issues, and I could go over and deal with the council. The council part was the easy part, and there's some chiefs that just hate dealing with council. But they're just people that your job is to inform them because they don't know. But once I saw how things were going in my area of the world, I decided, I'm going to stay here where I'm at. I think I can do more influence here. And I'm a big. Are you guys John Maxwell fans?
Been through.
You can say yes, you can say no. I get some people that's like Maxwell fucking sucks, and that's okay if you say that. Go ahead.
I've been through a couple of his class things. That was a long time. He was really in vogue in the early 2000s.
I don't think I know who he is.
John Maxwell?
Laws of Leadership. And,
everybody.
Okay.
Not bad.
The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And right before I went, this is the book that another sergeant from another agency said, hey, if you're going to do this, read this book.
Okay.
So
I'll have to find it.
Get them on eBay. You can buy them for like hardcovers for like $5. I get them from Goodwill, actually.
Yeah.
And to become like a legacy leader, whenever I hear someone that's going to step up, I buy them this book and I ship it to them. I said, let me give you a book. Because this was a total, for me, and Chris Wayne, this was a game changer for me.
Oh, wow.
Because, being in a small agency, management was more, how to manage other than how to lead. And I'm not knocking the agency for once. Do you hear me there? Tip City. I'm not knocking the agency. We just didn't have the resources, and that's like with the State Patrol. I like the fact that they have their own leadership college. And the Ohio Association of Chiefs of Police, they have a three-step program, a three-class program. They have STEP and then PELC and then CLE, which is good that we have something there leadership-wise. But in our state, we really don't have anything that teaches leadership. But with Maxwell's book, you get the laws of leadership, and then law number 1 is talking about the law of the lid. It's just like the lid on your coffee cup, that if you don't take your lid off and expand your willingness to grow, then you're not going to be any bigger than what you are. And he talks about the story of the McDonald brothers and Ray Kroc. And that's a great story of how the McDonald brothers were really good at making hamburgers, but Ray Kroc took it to the next level. And I thought that was pretty impactful. The law of the inner circle, and it's talking about how to get people to want to get on board with you and keeping them involved. And I always felt that was really important. Like with my career, they all had the ability to give influence. And the one thing that I did as a sergeant is I always did peer review. And what does that mean? Well, we have to do them fucking evals, right? So you do them every 6 months or every year?
Yeah, every year for us.
Yeah. So mine was due, I got promoted on March 16th, so mine was due before that. I'm like, why didn't you promote me on the Ides of March? I always thought that. But anyway, for you Greek philosophy people there,
the sword hanging over your head.
It's kind of a little ominous.
But
no, sword in your back.
It's police work, man. Come on.
True.
I wear my shock plates on the back, not in the front.
Something's going in the back. I put thumbprints on my lower back so they knew where to put their hand.
Here we go. It's good to have you on the show. We got all these quotes and great one-liners. But I allowed them to review me. So our first evals were like 1 through 5, which I thought was the stupidest thing in the world. So I dumbed mine down to does not meet expectation, meets them or exceeds them. That's all I needed. And I said, look, the guy that signs my paycheck is here 8 to 4, right? We work 6P to 6A. We never see one another except for in command meetings. So this is your way of telling him what kind of job I'm doing for you. And I was pretty proud of that. So it was the same eval, and it was their way. And I said, the only thing I ask, and I want you to be honest, because I'm humble enough to look at myself. I'm not doing something that meets your needs, or I'm just being an asshole. I can't evolve and change as a leader without your input. So I need that upward reflection. So, but if you give me a 1, please, please, please be detailed and write as much as you need. And I got some 1s, and I tell you, that was very humbling for me. But Jimmy Hunt gave me the best compliment ever, one of my officers. And poor bastard, he got stuck with me forever. For like his first 6 or 7 years at the department, I was the supervisor. And he evolved along. He did a really good job. And then, coming from just being green, because he was with my 2 other guys that were just, both of them are high speed, low drag. And he never really got to develop as an officer because these guys were so busy. He was always the backup guy. Does that make sense? He was, then finally he went from being the number 3 guy to being the number 1 guy. Right. So, we had some growing pains going on there. And then one day I gave him his eval, and I said, hey man, you're doing a great job. Keep doing what you're doing. I said, to kind of summarize this, I really wished I had this guy that you are today, because you've become a great officer, over the past few years. And he said, well, I wish I had this sergeant in those years. Really? And he said, yeah. He said, I used to think these peer reviews were fucking bullshit. He said, but you actually do change, and you're capable of change. So I always, whenever I handed in my evals for my crew, I had sent mine with it because I wanted that to follow it along. But, the biggest thing about being a supervisor, I think, is humility. Would you guys agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
Being humble.
Has to be.
Yeah. And it's not about do this, which is what I thought it was when I first got promoted. When I tell the younger sergeants, like, oh, no, bro, you're responsible, but you're more of a support role. When I show up on a scene, what do you guys need? What can I do? You go down to a traffic post or whatever. We had a domestic one time, and my guy that ended up getting promoted up, Nick, he made a decision to arrest this guy. Well, the guy, our dudes that get arrested all the time when the stripe shows up. So he comes over and wants to start pleading his case to me, thinking I'm going to undermine my guy, which never, ever do that, sergeants, if you're listening, unless there's very, very good reason for it. And he comes up and he's like, Sarge, this, and I said, put my hand up. I said, if you want to plead your case, you talk to him, because whatever he's deciding, that's what's happening. I'm only here as a support role. And it just took all the wind out of the sails. And I said, and Nick's like, get in a goddamn snatched the guy and put him in the car. And then we got down, and I don't know, it was like 2 days later. He's like, hey man, you got a minute? And I said, sure. He said, remember we were out there on that domestic the other night? Yeah. And he said, I just want to thank you for doing that. My pleasure. I mean, to me, it was just natural. I said, but why do you say that? He said, because another sergeant would not have handled it that way. Okay, well, there's one I did right.
Well, like I said, I think it was on a break. I told you the story about one of my guys calling me to the scene because some asshole wanted to talk to was demanding to see the sergeant. And as soon as I pulled up, my guy walks up to the car and he goes, Sarge, I told him, if you don't like me, you're really not going to like my sergeant. And I was like, that's a pretty fucking good compliment. I'll take that, And to that same, my guys have a rule that, like, when they get to the shift, one of the first things I let them know is people don't have a right to me. You call me when you need me.
Right.
I don't care. John Q. citizens screaming they want the sergeant. If you don't need me, don't fucking call me.
Right.
I'm there for you. I'm not there for them. If they want to talk to me, give them my number. They know where to find me. Give them my hours. I'll talk to them. But when you're on the scene handling something, by all means, if you need me, you call me. If you want me, you call me. I will be there in a flash. But if you don't need me, that's not up to John Q. Citizen to pick that they get to talk to the sergeant. It's up to you.
And
You
now
call
they're-
me when you want me.
Now they're all programmed. That's for the supervisor.
And that's why I did that, because everybody thinks they can scream they want the supervisor. No, you can't. You know.
Well, same thing. That's the, and then they don't like it when you get there because you're going to just tell them the same thing that the officer did.
Yeah, exactly. And that's our job as a supervisor, is to back the officer. Now, I always told them, I had one officer just, whatever they did, traffic stop, call. It's like, okay, 3, 2, 1, phone rings. Yep, what's up? Well, this is what I got. You need to make a decision. Well, but I said, you wonder how many dead squirrels are in the middle of the fucking roadway because they couldn't make a decision? I said, you have to pick one.
Yeah.
Fuck something up, I'll be there to fix it for you. I said, as long as you don't put someone in jail or violate their civil rights, anything else we can fix. Mm-hmm. Make a decision, because you're not learning if I'm spoon feeding you the answers.
Mm-hmm. Cell phones were the
Click.
cell phones were kind of the beginning of the end of a lot of things, because now, not only do you have your people calling because they can, now you have command staff that wants to know everything instantaneously because they're cell phones, and it's like,
what's going on? I'm handling my shit, sir.
Yeah. Do you remember in the old days when you used to come to work in the morning and find out we shot a motherfucker overnight? Like, that's how things used to be,
Yeah.
Now you want to know every time I chase a car.
Well, we have to call it. The patrol has the hub, and you have to call them, let them know shit.
My mind went right in the gutter when you said the hub.
I know. Well, it could. It should. Because there's a lot of shit drinking. A lot of shit packing that goes on there. But we were doing
I just got that. Did you hear that? A lot of shit packing goes on there. It's like going to Indiana to Uranus Fudge, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
They didn't pay us to say that, but they can.
We were doing this like multi-agency thing with like Dayton PD and the SO and Trotwood, and I was the only supervisor working. And
gosh.
It started out with one of my guys got into a resisting. Then we had a pursuit, and then we had another pursuit. Guy tossed a gun and wrecked the car. Well, Channel 7 shows up at the scene while we're like trying to get shit. So Columbus is seeing it because they're broadcasting it live because there's nothing.
Oh, good Lord.
So they call over and want to know why they didn't get a phone call. And I was pissed. This is probably part of the reason that I never did well in that administrative. So my dispatcher's like, the hub, Lieutenant so-and-so from the hub's calling, and they want to know why he didn't. And it's like, oh, okay. So I finally get a chance, and I call, and I'm like, hey, we had this. And it's like, well, why? It would have been nice to know you're supposed to call us and let us know. It's like, I said, well, you know what, Lieutenant? And I said, you're supposed to be the person that I can call for command level advice. I said, so if you want to get your ass out of that in a car and come over here and help me with 2 pursuits and an RTR, not to mention everything else that's going on, I said I would appreciate it. Until then, why don't you just shut the fuck up?
Well, you said that?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we're kind of working here. Can I call you back when we're not actually still working? Because I will happily brief you. Brief you. But I'm in the middle of some shit right now.
But I was lucky at that point. I had enough time on it, and I was doing what I had the command backing that somebody's going to be like, you shouldn't do that. You know what I mean? You probably shouldn't have talked to him like so-and-so.
With all due respect, go fuck yourself.
Sir.
Well, yeah, I always threw that in there. With all due respect, sir, go fuck yourself. I mean that.
Come on out of the hub, bro.
Come right out. Why don't you just drive over here?
Yeah. Drive over here and serve me my discipline. So that's a great segue in. So Eric didn't want to be a chief. I didn't want to be a chief after a while, but you started up the ladder. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, because in the highway patrol, promotion's a big thing. Mm-hmm. They push it back, especially back in the day. So I got promoted to lieutenant when I had about 10 years on. Did it for about 5 years. The problem with getting promoted with that little bit of time on is my experience at that point is we were all one team. Then once you get promoted to a position where you're starting to play the interagency politics, I found out that we weren't all one team. Me and a staff lieutenant who was we were both lieutenants. He was at Wilmington, I was at Xenia. Then he became a staff lieutenant. We didn't like each other when we were both post commanders. He was an arrogant dick. I pretty much told him that more than once.
That's why you wear a tie.
Sometimes you got to repeat yourself.
Keeps the foreskin down.
So, but then when they end up being your boss, that ends up being a problem. So, and we still didn't get along. So eventually, I was like, you know what, you can take your bullshit, and because you're also,
so you just had one level above you that soured you on it.
Pretty much, but you could see. It's like, okay, so this is how this is played. And then you get to see. And
you walk through the golden door and you're like, oh, I don't like it over here.
And then I got he's now retired. He retired as a much higher, but he had been one of my district staff when I was in Piqua before I went down to Xenia. And he called one day and was like, hey, would you consider transferring to Marysville? I'm like, why? And one of my classmates was there as a post commander, and she was a fuck up.
Oh, okay.
And it was the phone call was, well, I made a deal to get her promoted out of there.
Oh. That sounds outrageous, but that happens quite a bit.
Yeah.
Into an admin position where they moved her over into personnel in charge of administrative investigations. So you can't run a post,
right?
But now we're going to put you in charge of deciding whether or not people are operationally efficient.
I never understood that. Why wouldn't they just demote?
Well, it depends on who you are.
So I got it.
She was very politically connected. And she had the right degrees and that kind of stuff. So, and I'm like,
let's just push her up the chain.
So, like I said, I love the highway patrol.
Yeah, we're not impugning anyone here. We're just talking your story.
But all agencies have a certain level of interagency politics. And I understand
absolutely.
People above them, everybody's got a boss.
Yep, right.
That's right.
So I understand some things are not necessarily within their control, and sometimes that you take the path of least resistance. He needed her out of his district. She was screwing up a post.
Oh wow!
That was the best way he could solve his problem and make her somebody else's problem.
So did you go?
No, couldn't, because I was just going through a divorce and everything.
Right.
So that and that entire time period was a bad time too. My mom died.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
My mom had just died in going through a divorce and that kind of stuff. So it wasn't the best. That was probably the worst. 3 to 5 years of my life.
That's terrible.
But it is what it is. You learn from it and you just kind of move on. And when I turned in my bars, because I did it voluntarily, I told my captain at the time, who, it's like, I know this is career suicide, and quite honestly, you can take your ball. I don't want anything that you have.
Nice.
You can shove it up your ass.
Oh, wow.
So I'll go back to being a sergeant, and I'm going to do a job where you're going to keep asking me to take another, and I'm going to give you my middle finger, and I'm going to speak my mind.
Right.
Because the other part of it that I'm never was big into playing the social bullshit game, going to all the promotions, ring kissing, all that kind of stuff. It's like, this is stupid.
Yeah, I'm out here.
You should not have to do that to move up. But in a paramilitary organization, just like the military, you certainly have a certain amount of that. I get it.
Right.
It just, and I knew that was rules of the game, or I found out that was rules of the game. I don't want to play by those rules.
Right.
So you have one choice. You have a couple of choices. Either you change your fundamental beliefs and start doing something that you don't agree with
and be miserable,
or you play your own game and run, you kind of run your career the way you want to run it.
Yeah.
So I just kind of ran my career the way I wanted to run it, and I wouldn't do.
And you were happy
different.
doing it, right?
Oh yeah,
I think
because I got to do all kind of things
Yeah, I think we call that the honorable choice too.
But you know what I mean?
You knew what you were,
Yeah.
and when what you would feel good doing, and you did it.
I got asked several times to take a post and that kind of stuff, and it was like, I haven't changed. And I remember telling that to my district captain at the time. It's like, it's not going to work out for me. I know who I am. I'm not going to become this, like, I'm not bowing to the East. I'm not stroking people's egos. I'm not going to kiss people's rings. You know what? That's just not, and that's what you have to do to be successful to a certain extent.
Right.
And I'm just not, I'm not interested in that.
Yeah, and there's a lot to be, and I'm proud of you for doing that and having that, because you and I have been friends since school. You were a year behind me, and I was really proud when I learned, damn, you became a trooper. That's all right. Yeah, that's pretty cool, but, and we were talking about having that Covington mentality the other day.
And that's probably did not serve me well. That's part of the Covington mentality.
Right, yeah. Well, it's kind of like the community where everyone's pretty well outspoken. And, you call it as you see it. But, you stepped over the threshold, you got into that realm, and you realized, yeah, this isn't me. And coming back to the striping, that's why I always like to ask everybody, who are my supervisors in the room whenever I'm giving a lecture. And, you kind of have that, I don't know, the league of the stripe, and that's what I tell everybody when they're like, I don't want to deal with that shit. I was like, yeah, but which one of these assholes do you want to work for? And then they're like, ooh, I never thought of that. Are you smarter than this guy? Well, yeah. Do you want to work for that guy? He's a fuck up. Okay, that's your competition.
Yeah.
Take the test.
Yep.
The best story ever, and God, I love the Blue Ash Police Department. Great bunch of guys down there. Their former chief's name is Paul Hardinger, and then their current chief, that's there. I don't want to call him out, but he's a great fisherman. But and that's what Paul asked him. Are you going to take the test? No. And that's what he said. Which one of these assholes do you want to work for? Because now think down the road a little bit. You take the test now, you could be the next chief, because they only hire from within. And right now he's the current sitting chief. Great guy, and it's one thing I love about, when I was coordinator of the Honor Guard. I don't want to say ran it, but the coordinator of the Honor Guard in Miami County. We were multi-jurisdictional because we're a bunch of small departments here in Miami County. But going to law enforcement honors, full honors funerals, and I always saw him at every one. And I always thought that was great. And that was my thing in the state of Ohio. I'm going to every honors funeral within the state because that's just what I did. That was my path. Everyone has their own path, and that was my goals. And like with my officers, we just had to put up right now the campfire stories, and that was one thing I always impressed on my officers. I bought Heroes Behind the Badge episodes 1 and 2, and I gave them episode 1. I said, go home and watch this, because Clark County started off that series with Suzanne Hopper and her killing, and I was working that day. Miserable.
That was a terrible day.
Yeah. Were you there? Did you go to the shootout?
I was not there, but I was working also.
Yeah. Did you work that? You probably worked that night, didn't you?
I was working, but yeah.
Were you on the day shift that day?
That day I was.
It was before I got promoted. It was the year before I got promoted.
Yeah, I just got home.
Yeah, but it was 2010, 2011. Yeah, it was all ones. Yeah, January 1 of 2011. But that was a miserable day. I mean, just the vibe of the day was just so sad, But and then doing the funerals and all that. But I had impressed upon my officers, if you haven't been to police before, watch this with your family. And I gave a set, to the college, and they're like, nah, we're not going to show that. Okay, that's cool. But I think you can get it on. I think it's on YouTube now. It's Heroes Behind the Badge. Had the pleasure of meeting the producer, Bill Erfurth, great guy. Went down to, I had to go to DC every year, No wonder I was ready to get out. Sometimes you can only bite so much of the apple.
Yep.
When your soul gets full. But for those of us who do go to DC for Police Week, do not go to the Holocaust Museum for Police Week. It's just too much loss. I did that, and I was so depressed when I got done with the Holocaust Museum. I just went back to the room. We're like, we're going to drink, and I'm like, no, it was just so impactful. I mean, going normally with your family, Have you been?
No,
Have you been down to DC?
The only time in all, I've always avoided all that stuff.
That's cool. So nothing wrong with that.
My coach's, one of his classmates got killed down in Southern Ohio when we were in Coach Pupil period, and of course, then we went to the funeral because he was a classmate, and I was still in Coach Pupil period, and I was like, if I never go to another one of these fucking funerals, I'm good. That was the worst.
Well, sure, because you have that connection.
Oh, it was terrible, and that's when they did the honor guard with troopers from the post, and it was terrible. They had to carry her in. They had little kids. It was terrible.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I'm good. I don't.
I'll never go to that.
I will.
Well, right, and that's a level of self-care.
And quite
absolutely,
like every other one that I've been involved in, I was parking cars. I was standing outside. I did all the. It's like I don't.
All the operational things.
Yeah, I will do all the shit that the people that feel like they need to be in there need to do, and I'll take care of the rest of it so that they don't have to worry about it.
See, Columbus does a great job. Columbus PD with their own, they're like 70 people strong over there. If there's a line of duty death anywhere, really in the state of them in Cleveland, because they have their own pipe and drum band, and they're extremely well organized when it comes to line of duty deaths. But it takes a toll. I mean, you in kind of our thing in honor guard was the best we can do is the least we can do, because that's absolutely the most miserable time for those poor families. When I went to DC, Dan the man, the other Dan Westling, he's retired now, did the court online, which we line up shoulder to shoulder and stand at attention while the families of those fallen for that year that's going on the walls come in. But yeah, you're right. It's a lot of sadness.
Oh yeah.
And hindsight being 2020, I think in my vision was everybody should go if you can handle it, or if I shouldn't say handle it, if it's something you feel the need to do, because there it's important that we remember those that go on that sacrificed it all, and kind of what I do here in Miami County since I've retired. I go to the week of Police Week, because when we have our memorials, always the first week of May. Miami County's is always the first Wednesday, and then the state's the first Thursday, and Montgomery County's the first Friday. Take a week off, and then the national. But I always go around that week and put flowers on our fallen officers' graves. So I bought Tipsay's last Crown Vic, so I fire the Crown Vic up and I drive it around to all the grave sites and put that out there. But and like with our fallen officer from Tip City, he died right after the war, or during the war in 1940, whatever. But I don't even think his family's even around. There may be one or two that's left, but
right.
I know, like with the town marshal there, Harvey Hake in Covington, none of his family's claims him anymore, I guess. But I always do that, but that's just kind of my way of giving back. But I guess where the deep rabbit hole we went into on this was, remember that, and as part of your leadership role as a supervisor is to tell those guys, hey, this is important. And we started doing that with our academy cadets, because when, like Montgomery County, we have a large memorial service there. They come out and they set the chairs up, and gives them a part of seeing the event and realizing the importance of it. But there's nothing wrong with the position you took.
No,
not at all.
And I think a lot of, especially with the cadets and that kind of stuff, I think that's probably because this shit can happen. It's real.
Sure it is. And how do you handle it when it happens to you?
Yeah. I mean, as a supervisor, that was probably one of my, thank God it never happened, but that was probably one of my greatest fears. I have a capacity to deal with a lot of nasty shit and not even bug me. I can go pick up body parts and put them in a bag and eat pizza. It literally
been there, right?
That part of it doesn't bug me at all. But when you start talking about getting one of your own people seriously injured or killed, that's an entirely different.
Amen.
And that's where that whole. I can't imagine the level of guilt that you would have about that what could have I done different, especially if you were their direct supervisor. What the hell, with training, or what should I have been there? Why were and because I played through that in my mind a ton, and when I broke in new sergeants, it was like, okay, somebody on your shift gets killed or seriously injured. What are some things that you got to think of outside the box? Because the guys that are working your shift, like when Kimra got killed, we had to get up there I came up from Dayton. We started shooing away everybody that was from LCS and from Piqua from the scene as soon as we could.
What is LCS?
Licensed commercial standards.
Oh, got it. Okay.
That, because she was an but
right.
her direct, because they were all close friends.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, and God love it, like Sergeant at Piqua, who was a crash reconstructionist out there, they're doing their job.
Right.
Like they're functioning, but it's like you gotta go.
Yeah.
Like Columbus Crash Reconstruction came over and was like, hey, we got this, go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they're great. They are great. We had that double commercial fatal. But anyway, go ahead.
But, you have to, as a supervisor, and it's like your guys or girls, that's one of what good are they going to be at the scene?
No, they aren't.
And
that's where you have to
what
interject.
good is it doing for them long term?
Exactly.
What damage is it causing for them to try and fight?
One of the first things you need to do is start getting a hold of adjoining posts and tell them you need people.
Yeah.
Because even adjoining posts may have close ties.
Yeah.
But it's not one of their guys on their shift.
Right. Yeah. And that's that's the things like us as supervisors, that's what we think about.
No, I spent a lot of time gaming that shit out.
Get them out of there, get reinforcements back in, or, we had a drowning here south of the city. Just throw a rock is where the drowning was. And then the fire chief comes in, he says, hey, of course we go to ICS, right? What's our incident command structures and what are you doing? And, oh, okay. So I just went to ICS, because I was all happy to start using my skills. And, the fire chief's running the scene. Mark, I need you out front to keep the reporters at bay. You're going to be my public information officer. You good with that? Sure. So then there was another sergeant there who was like 6 months senior to me. And that person was on the backside of the lake chilling out while I was out front. And of course, I kind of caught some flack for that. Well, you're outside the jurisdiction. There was no one in the city. Well, sure, I had an officer in the city. Absolutely. We didn't have any calls because it was just that time of day, but that was the big thing right then. We wanted to get that young man recovered. Of course, they were pulling in, division of watercraft and it was a fireman's brother that passed, sadly. But, and probably within 3 hours they found him. No big deal. Pack it all up, take it home. But, applying that human factor. And what were we thinking about there? Well, these people need food. So I called our local pizzeria. They're closed on that day. I think it was a Monday. And she said, oh, I'll come down and make you guys food. How much you want? Don't worry about it. I'll just bring them out. So she made like 12 pizzas and brought them out. We need water. So I sent a guy in to get cases of water from the dollar store. I said, just here's some money. I think I threw him $50. Go buy a bottle of water because it was hot out. So we need to hydrate our first responders, right? We weren't thinking about that. Fire department had one case of water on the truck. Are you
kidding me? Those hose draggers usually have
usually bring their donut truck.
Exactly.
Donut truck pulls up and everything.
But at that time, they only had one. So you got all these people coming and going, and of course, our news crews were out there, and I don't have a problem with it. I think working with the news media, it should be a partnership. I want them to have the right information because if they ain't getting it,
they're going to go ask.
They're going to go, but they're going to,
and they're going to find the three-toed tree sloth that has no idea.
Right.
But they're going to tell a good story.
Right. So, one of the female reporters from Channel 7, there's no restrooms out there. So I said, oh, no problem. Called my car. I said, get in with him. I said, take her up to the PD. And so, senior restroom, threw them all pizzas. We had plenty of food. I said, we'll get you guys the information you got. When's your deadlines? Blah, blah, blah. Of course, the joke used to be I never saw a camera I didn't like. But as a supervisor, those are the next step things we need to be thinking about, and that's what some of the people they're so used to the operational stuff. I need to do A, B, C, and D, and we were talking about like with that crash.
Yep.
Crash people's out there doing their job. But we need to be thinking that next level. And then it's nice when you have a good operational next level supervisor that says, all right, Sarge, good job. I got this. What else do you need? That's very reassuring when you have that. But there's a lot of times like with Eric and I, we're it.
and
we're running the city.
And that's kind of a scary.
Probably same thing with you with the
first few times that happens. You're like, oh, fuck. Everybody, you get out. I'll never forget the first time I got out of my car and everybody was looking at me, and I was like, oh, I'm the guy. I'm that guy. And shit.
That's something else. I think like you go from being a very competent road cop. Trooper, deputy, sergeant, or whatever. You go from being, and then all this, and you're used to making your own decisions, and you're very confident, and then all of a sudden you put on stripes, and those same decisions all of a sudden become, holy shit.
Yeah, like because you're making decisions for your crew now,
and then your long-term repercussions, and it's all on you. And it's like, holy shit! And it's like that's one of the other things when you're getting somebody ready for promotion. It's like, dude, you think you got your shit in the bag? Just understand that for the first 6 months, you're going to feel like
it's a colostomy bag.
Exactly.
And it's made out of paper. It's going all over your shoes. But there's no preparing for that until
there really isn't.
And it's like because like I said, it's always easy to look at the person above you and think that was one great thing about even my experience with being a lieutenant wasn't necessarily the best part of my life, but I wouldn't give that away because when I went back to being a sergeant, I knew how to run a post.
Yeah, there you go.
I knew all the administrative functions. I knew everything that my boss was going through. I was a much better asset.
So that's right. You were a better support for the lieutenant then.
And
providing you got along with him. My post commanders and stuff, I always got along pretty. There was a couple that I had a little friction with, but for the most part, Yeah, you beat that out of him eventually, didn't you?
It was only really one, and I outlasted him. Well, two post gamers that I worked for that I was like, oh God. But at the end of the day, you have to think about, you're responsible for everybody, and
you are,
and you're the person that everybody looks at.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I love that one. Eric said, "I come walking up on the scene and everyone's looking at me,"
and you're like, "Oh,
yep, oh shit."
That's pretty humbling, though. When you first take that deep breath, and
because even if a lieutenant or a captain's there. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't recognize that, but everybody recognizes the
stripe. You're the Sarge. That's right. That's your thing. Absolutely.
It's like, and they'll hide.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I've had command staff ditch. Like, you're doing a great job.
You're doing a great job, Sergeant.
I don't want to talk to him.
Yeah.
I don't want any part of that shit. Like.
Sometimes it can be kind of a badass feeling, though. I just remembered when I was still doing the tactical shit, the guys would do a search warrant.
Yeah.
So they would hit a house, do a search warrant, and then I would come in afterwards because, of course, I'm the boss, so I'm around the corner, safe and sound somewhere. Mm-hmm. So I would walk in the front door, and there's all this fucking carnage, people cuffed on the floor, hogtied and shit. And one day I had this, I go, I feel like that opening scene of Star Wars when Darth Vader walks in and there's fucking dead stormtroopers all over the place and dead rebels all over the place, and you're just kind of like dun 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 dun.
Good job. You walk in there with the breathing thing.
It's cool when your guys on your shift, or guys and girls, or your troopers, whatever you want to, your people, when they're responding to something, you got something major, and they're calling out on the radio, "Hey, I'll take this, you take that." You're not even given direction. You're just sitting, and that's that.
Like, easy button day.
And it's like, this is the way it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, and I think that's a good testament of a good working sergeant, to where you have the cohesiveness of your shift. That you have that, and I think that's a good testament of a good working sergeant, to where you have the cohesiveness of your shift. That you have that, and I think that's a good testament of a good working sergeant, to where you have that cohesiveness of your shift. That you have that, and I think that's a good testament of a good working sergeant, to where you have that cohesiveness of your shift. That you have that, and I think that's a good testament of a good working sergeant, to where you have that cohesiveness of your shift. That you have that, and I think that's a good testament of a good working sergeant, to where you have that cohesiveness of your shift. That you have that, and I think that's a good testament of a good working sergeant, to where you have that cohesiveness of your shift. That you have that, and I think that's a good testament of a good working sergeant, to where you have that cohesiveness of your shift. That you have that, and I think that's a good testament of a good working sergeant, to where you have that cohesiveness of your shift. That you have that, and I think that's a good testament of a good working sergeant, to where you have that cohesiveness of your shift. That you're not managing, and you don't have to do anything. Your people are fucking in, like why I said, you're squared away. Yeah, you're going to a major incident. The only thing you got to do is think that next layer out. My guy's got it. And that's what I loved about it. When he had the right mix of personalities and they have that drive. And of course the big thing right now is they talk about street goons, and I was like,
I always roll my eyes. Whatever.
or the big Sarge. I never got the big, because Dan was calling me Big Sarge. Hey, Big Sarge, what's going on? I'm like, what does that mean? Because I've been out of the game, so I didn't know what that meant. Well, then he sent me a meme the other day of what Big Sarge meant. Oh, okay, that's funny. But that's the thing of beauty, and I think everyone's had that one crew, that's just awesome. And then, not the rest of them are great, but I think we also equally have that one crew that was just, my God, you fucker's going to put me in my grave. Or you dread going to work. Like,
Where I have the hard time is where we are. Midnights is kind of a popular shift to be on. It's not, so I don't get,
because you make it fun.
I don't get rookies all the time.
Really?
So for the longest time, I had really experienced dudes. Like most of them, when I like I talked about, I come out of roll call and it's like, fucking, these guys are all fucking smarter than me. The only reason I'm wearing these stripes is because I was here a little longer, or I tested like 1% higher. Like they can all do the job I'm doing. Right. They just aren't right now. So that's my usual crew. And then every now and then the stars align, so all of a sudden I get a couple brand new out of the academy rookies on my shift, which I love. Like, I love the energy, I love the cops. But all of a sudden I'm like, oh fuck, I gotta fucking work again. I gotta actually show up on calls and be a sergeant. I got lazy for a while because these guys were so good that I didn't have to fucking actually do my job too much. And now I got rookies I got to fucking deal with. But right now I got a real good mix of experienced dudes and a couple brand new guys.
Go ahead, Chris.
Do you find, especially since you've been on for quite a while, that dealing with the new people sometimes, though, it's like you have a hard time remembering not knowing as much as they don't know?
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh my God. and it's like,
I think
and the more time that you have on, the more you're like, I don't ever remember being that dumb.
I think,
you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't mean, it's just like, you just like, and then there's also like during, they changed training stuff.
Yeah.
Because like we were cutting academies at one point and they were cutting stuff out because they were trying to run more classes and that kind of stuff. And they weren't getting the same crash training that I got.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they of course they're new, so they don't want to tell you that they don't understand what you're saying.
Right.
When you're asking about,
because they have them terrified.
Right. And then I'm like, I sit down and I'm like, how did you fuck this up? Like literally, I brought a couple.
It's like you tried to fuck it up.
And it's like, this doesn't make sense. And it's like, wait, you didn't understand the first time I explained it to you, and now it makes sense. You never even got this in the academy. I remember talking to my post commander. It's like, dude, we've got a problem.
Yeah.
Well, they're not getting this. We're gonna have to do some like 101 shit. Because
one of the reasons I teach, and I think this helps me a lot, one of the reasons I teach is to keep myself sharp.
Yes.
With stuff that I don't normally do all the time. Like I don't make a shit ton of traffic stops, but I can fucking teach traffic stops like a motherfucker. And I think because I teach so much and I am continually surrounded by a bunch of little dumb fuck skulls full of mush, being cadets, it's a little easier for me then to relate to those new guys when they do come on shift, because it's like, okay, yeah, cadet, I got to go into cadet mode, coach you along a little more than the older guys who know everything. It kind of helps me kind of relate, keep touch with that newness, that kind of squeaky clean feeling,
naivety,
but I like I said, I love the energy, man. I do too. A new guy comes on the shift and the energy they usually bring with them. I've had one here I don't want to get too detailed, but I've had to rein him in a couple times. But every time my speech begins with, "Look, dude, I like you. I love your fucking energy. I love the way you do police work. I love your instincts, but we just gotta kind of pull it back a little bit before something happens, okay?
Quit taking great big bites of the apple. Chew it up and swallow first there, son.
I've always said that you can jump somebody's ass, but you've got to give them the explanation of why. Mm-hmm. Like this is you're fucking this up by the numbers, and if this doesn't stop, this is what can happen downstream. Yeah. I'm not telling you not to go out and do your job, but we're having a pretty critical conversation.
Yeah.
And the other thing was always is you can be stupid, and if you work really hard, most of your guys will take care of you, and you'll get through your career. You can be arrogant in law enforcement if you're really good enough to back it up, but you can't be stupid and arrogant. That is a lethal combination.
Oh, yeah.
And then usually they're arrogant about being stupid.
Yep.
Those are the worst.
And you won't survive. We had a trooper that was struggling a little bit, and he ended up not surviving. But I was going to have a critical conversation.
You mean career-wise?
Yeah, he got fired.
Yeah.
So, and rightfully so. But my post commander at the time, I was going to bring him in the office and talk to him about some things. And my post commander looks at me and he's like, "Hey, do you want me to sit in on this?" It's like, no.
No, I got this, bro.
I'm like, I don't, because if depending on how this goes, this probably is going to turn into the possibility of a hostile work environment situation. And I don't want you involved. I said, in fact, I'd really rather you just not be anywhere near the post. He's like, okay.
I'm going to go to the lake then. See, I had the opposite effect. I went from, because I always got all the new ones. I mean, fresh out of the academy, don't know fuck about shit. Then I took over a very well experienced crew, and I really had problems because they knew what the fuck they were doing. And God love Ron Hess. I went to dinner with him, and I was just problem after problem because they're. He's like, okay, so he went to Pelk, right? I said, yeah. I said, remember your S1 through 4? Yes. S1s, I think if I got this right. 1s and 2s need a lot of input, need a lot of coaching, blah, blah, blah. But your 3s and 4s, just sit back and do nothing. Let them go do their fucking job. They don't need that. He said, your problem is you're too used to dealing with these fresh out of the academy guys. You need to be able to readjust and just show up. What do you need? Nothing. Okay, cool. So they were taking, I'm like, okay, did you remember to, there's little things. And to me, it was second nature, but to them, it was insulting. Yeah, no shit, dumb motherfucker. And they act like I haven't done this before. That's how they were taking it. Plus, there was a little bit of friction there anyway, because their supervisor didn't like me at all. So they had an attitude when I came to that shift. But, and that was just a unique experience. So out there in the sergeant world, my best advice is know your audience. And if you're fortunate to you have to be all things to all people, I think, at this level. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
So we need to be able to take that first year recruit, whatever, officer, trooper, deputy, doesn't matter, work with them on that level and then be able to maintain it. And when I wanted to re-implement it in our department, since we were small, the problem we were having, we were losing officers after FTO because they had no support. And it's like, why are we mentoring these people? We had an officer that and she did good work, and she was aggressive, and I don't want to say aggressive, she was a go-getter. She wanted to go out and do it. Yeah, this is what I wanted to do, but she was making mistakes, and instead of saying, hey, just needed someone to pull them aside, she just wasn't getting that support, so she got upset and left. And she's doing very well at the agency she's at now, but what I was suggesting then, and I was having a meeting with one of my guys, I said, how about we bring this person over to our shift? Could you kind of take her under your wing? Because that's why I had a guy tell me years ago, whether you're a supervisor or not, when you get a new one in, take them under the wing and kind of show them the ropes. It's like what you were talking about. Well, if I'd have known, I could have called AAA and got towed out and not been a problem. Now you're telling me that stuff. Just little things like that to help them along. And I think that in the industry as a whole, especially when I got out, and if it's changed, please let me know, that that mentorship through the ranks was somewhere we kind of lost that. Do you guys agree with that?
I think it's important.
To a point.
Yeah, okay. I'm not saying it's that way everywhere, but from my purview, I think we kind of lost that.
Yeah, I think some of that is the problem with, and it's not a problem. Like the newer generation, they don't do a lot of direct communication.
Right, they're all on their fucking phone.
So your senior guys and your new people don't communicate the same way.
That's a great point.
We're used to very direct.
Oh God!
Like we played for coaches in school who cussed at you.
Yeah,
I had one punch me. I came limping off the field playing soccer. I came limping off the field, and he slugged me in the shoulder. First he goes, "Where's it hurt?" I go, "My right leg," and he slugs me in the shoulder. He goes, "Not thinking about your leg now, are you?" And I was like, "Shit, yeah, different world."
Yeah, so I think that's
funny.
I think that's some of that is trying to. There's such a divide from the guys that have 25 years on compared to the new guys, just in the way they do business and they communicate. I think some of that hurts. I was used to having very direct, because like our senior troopers, when I went to Lima, were very direct. They were very direct. If the sergeant
waving
wasn't
your ass with both feet.
well, yeah. If the sergeant wasn't ripping your ass, one of the senior troops was.
Right.
They're like, "Hey, I took this to court and this was jacked up." I'm not running to Sarge, because when you do something that's screwed up, it makes us all look bad. And if you don't fix it, we'll have a talk behind the gas pump.
Right.
Yep.
Gun belts on or off?
I'm not sure. But those guys, I don't think you have that now, because I think there's a little less buy-in, and I think there's less. They don't want, the communication styles have changed.
Yeah, we got to be more warm and fuzzy now, which was kind of where I was running into trouble. I shouldn't say trouble. I was having difficulty there at the end of my career, because I'm kind of like a bull in a china shop. And plus I was pretty fucking high strung, if you listen to the episode's up right now. But my two people was like, "You are high strung as fuck." But, yeah, I agree with you on the communication level. It's just how are you interacting with people now, and how are you reaching them? But where there's a will, there's a way, and I think that's probably just as things evolve. Being in advanced training right now, I always ask everybody, who was alive in 1992? Raise your hand, and less and less hands are. And they're like, "Why do you ask?" That's the year I went to the academy, 92, 93. They're like, "You're old." Yeah, I am very old.
Yeah, I know.
But do you guys agree that being a cop in the 90s was great?
I loved it. Yeah, I loved it for sure.
Absolutely.
Whole other world.
Pre-camera.
Yeah. Being a cop in the 90s was amazing. Actually, up into the 2000s and mid-2000s was still fun.
It was.
We had cruiser cams then, but we had ways to scam the system. Oh, my body might quit working. Damn.
Our cruiser cam stuff was. We didn't have them until. I don't think we had them in all the cars until at least 2000.
Yeah, the old mobile visions with the cassette tapes.
The cassette tapes.
Yep. We had
it used to drive me crazy, because like when we would do like those multi-agency blitzes, like Dayton PD had no accountability. Like they just had packs of citations and they just threw them out. Nobody took care of them. The highway patrol, you had to account for every citation.
Citation.
Yep.
You had to turn in your pink.
Same with us.
They had this like stupid like hyper accountability for videotapes.
Really?
Like you had to have a supervisor take it out of the back.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
we did that for a little while until the sergeants were like, "Fuck this! Let them take their own fucking tapes."
Because the sergeants were the only ones with keys to the vault, right?
Yeah, and I was like, "I'm like, what the hell?"
I think probably
like,
at one time somebody was kicking tapes out.
VHS tapes if you need them in the back, because at first it was that erase them until they figured out that doesn't really work very well.
Right.
Then it became they became very disposable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like use it, hold it until the retention period and then throw it in the trash can.
That was my job, being a fleet manager. I had to go in there every Sunday. The Sundays I worked, and all I did was erase and rewind tapes for hours.
It was dumb.
So stupid. I'm like, why don't we have records to do this? Well, we need an officer to do it. But, gentlemen, it's been an hour and 12 minutes. This episode went quicker than the last one. Thank you for coming in. I hope you guys had a good time. I certainly had a good time.
For sure.
Again, shieldwithin.com. www. Get a little plug for your show.
Yeah, if you want to listen to married people bitch at each other, come listen to my wife and I at Hey Baby with Nicole and Eric.
It's a good show. It's fun.
Yeah, it is.
It's kind of funny the way I have my podcast set up. As soon as I listen to Bonchino every day, as soon as he's done, hey, baby. So do you like the dad jokes I've been sending you?
I do.
I
do. I think
funny as hell.
either this week or next week I got one I used from you. So.
Oh, do you? Cool.
Yeah.
Give us a dad joke.
Yep. Oh, off the top of my head, you can't put me on the dad joke spot like that.
Chris, while he's thinking of a dad joke, what'd you think?
Obviously I've never done one of these before. It's kind of fun. I like I said, I like listening to I listen to that. I also listen to yours, obviously, just because I drive a ton, and a lot of the stuff I can relate to. It's fun to listen to, and then some of the mental health stuff, like I've said before, plug it for everybody needs to figure out what they need to do to take care of it. I'm kind of a self-study guy. A lot of the stuff that you put on there, it's like,
A few times I get a text from him, he's like, you are spot on with that. Oh, thanks, bro. Thanks for listening.
Like I said,
Here's some merch.
I do a lot of lessons learned, and then, like I said, self-study stuff, and I think that's valuable. A lot of people, are kind of resistant to counseling, or maybe they're not that open to it. But at least if you're getting the information, you're listening to, you're opening your mind up to being like, oh, okay, now that makes sense.
Yeah.
And once you start to recognize it makes sense, then I think it becomes less of a problem, because then you're like, oh,
yes, exactly.
Like I'm not alone. I think that's the worst.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
But we all tend to think that once in a while, and that was my goal when we started this podcast, was for that guy.
Yep.
Right. How did I end up here? Why is my life coming apart? Whatever, in whatever level you're at. I mean, the purpose of the Shield Within is to give you resources to be able to take care of you and have self-care.
Yes.
I was very proud the other day. A colleague called me up, and I was like, oh yeah, did you call so-and-so? Because we, meet for beers, and we like going to Hinders here in Tip City. They're not paying me to say that either. But if you get to Tip City, come on to Hinders. Best damn wings in the world. And Hoy, if you're listening, asshole, you owe me an old fashioned. But anyway, that's one of the bartenders, and the manager. But I thought we were meeting there, and he says, "No, I need to talk to you." Oh, well, let's go to breakfast. So we went to breakfast, and and he was needing to walk down the path, and was just kind of wanting to know, where do I start? Shit's fucked up, and this is happening. I'm like, oh, you called the right person, and thanks for calling me, because I know it took a lot of energy for him to do that.
Oh yeah.
And I hooked him up with Dr. David. I said, here, give Dr. David a call. Won't cost you a dime. He'll sit down and talk to you for 15 minutes, and he'll recommend a good path for you. And he did. And he's working along. He texted me today, and he says, well, I got a long drive. He said, you know what? Fuck it. I just started at episode 1, and I'm working all my way through your catalog.
That's what I ended up doing. That's what I've done.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Work your way.
Well, I mean, we've known each other forever, and I did this. And I was like, I'm driving, I'm listening to that. And, now between that and fighting the Civil War, I found a great Civil War podcast.
Oh, cool.
If you're a history buff. But
and that's the beauty of podcasting. And I think with our latest bout with federal politics is that a lot of people are going to the podcast mode. So I've seen a nice uptick in what we do. And if you're not into it, that's my favorite thing is like, you got a podcast? Yeah. What time is it on? 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When are you available?
Hit the Spotify thing, or click the link on Facebook. It's really not.
We're on all major platforms. I mean, that's a little bit of a work. And did you come up with one?
Oh, dad joke?
Yeah,
sure.
you're going to end this on a dad joke.
Shit, this may end up being 3 hours.
What's the difference between a pickpocket and a peeping Tom?
What's the difference between a pickpocket and a peeping Tom, Chris?
I have no idea.
A pickpocket snatches watches.
See, they're so dumb. They're so dumb. They're funny. So that's the best thing about your show. I have to say, I just listened to the dad jokes and probably about 10 minutes in, I'm like, all right, I got something to do.
They're just rambling now.
But you guys, the other day, when I was texting you, I'm sorry I do that. People do it to me all the time.
that's fine.
But I did it to her. I'm listening to the show, and for some reason in my mind, I'm like, hey, you said blah, 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 blah. And people's like, you said this dumb thing on the other day. I'm like, I don't remember what I said.
I recorded that a month ago. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but we were talking about, I don't know, it was in your show, and that's why I was just commenting to him because I have his cell phone number. But yeah, good stuff, gentlemen. We need to do this again.
I'd come back.
We need to do this
Every time I come, I get a book recommendation. So
you get more books, you get merch. Chris, anytime you want to come back, you have an open invite. It's a pleasure having you here. I'm glad you're
conversation.
Here. We love our brothers out there at the State Patrol. I always worked really well with them, and that's one beauty we had in my world was our midnight crews all worked very, very well together.
Yep.
Midnight crews work very well together because there's nobody.
That's pretty much it. Yep.
And you need help.
Yeah.
This is one of my colleagues on midnights with the sheriff's department. He says, Sarge, ain't nobody getting out of bed to come help us. We are who we are. That's it. I said, yeah, you're fucking right.
Yeah. Because
he would call me, hey, can you guys run out there and take care of that? Yeah. We'll be down there. Just okay. We'll got it. It's the same thing, just like with Piqua there. Yep. And I told Lieutenant Gephardt, if it's Sunday night and you only got one troop out and he's up in Shelby, call us. We'll go handle it. If you need the numbers or whatever you need, fine. But don't hesitate. We'll go out and take care of it. And then after Nick and I left, our friend, Mr. Hat, said, things are different now. I said, well, I'm really sorry to hear that. But yeah, we appreciate it. Don't want to get down another rabbit hole because I'll keep talking. All right, Donnie, key the music.
May your days and nights find you strong and safe. May you take your place as your family's face. As you do the shit that we won't do. As you embrace the risk you must go through. May you grow in strength and heal and find your heart, your soul, and your mind. You look at your life and grin. You have a home, the shield within.